Can you just tell me a little bit about the ripple effects of suicide? I suspect this is something that few people are aware of.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, obviously my whole book really speaks to the ripple of effect, throughout my life. But, we know that over 800,000 people take their own lives every single year, worldwide. And that for every single person that dies by suicide, up to 135 people are directly impacted by that one single death. And so that includes family, it includes friends and colleagues and first responders. And so, according to World Health Organization global suicide estimates, that means that somewhere up to 500 million people can be really impacted by suicide every single year. And, so it's so many people's lives, and that those people that are impacted are then at much greater risk of mental ill health, but also, social isolation as well, and at risk of suicide themselves. And so, when we talk about trying to save one life, we're also really talking about saving so many more lives by doing that. And certainly the burden that suicide creates, we will be reducing that immensely.
So you've been a firefighter for 15 years or so, Tara. We all know that firefighters fight fires, but I think a lot of people probably don't realise that firefighters also have to, they confront the challenge of suicide from the general population. Can you just talk a little bit about that and the impact it has on firefighters?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we go to so many different incidences, not just fires. We go to rescue incidents, we go to hazardous material incidents, we go to car accidents. So there are many different things that we do, and we also assist other first responder agencies like paramedics and also the police. So any one of those types of jobs can involve attending a suicide. And I think what's particularly difficult for firefighters is that it's not something we necessarily expect to encounter on the job. And it's not something necessarily a skill set that we have, that we feel that we can really do anything meaningful to prevent that. And, when you're number one, everything that we do is about protecting and preserving life. And when we turn up to a suicide where invariably we're not able to actually have any effect over the outcome, or that person often is already deceased, it can be incredibly challenging for us. So I think there are many reasons why it can have a huge impact on firefighters.
One of the interesting things that you're doing besides being a firefighter is a PhD. You're halfway through a PhD looking into the impact that those suicides on the job have on firefighters. Can you just talk a little bit about what you've discovered so far, what the research is showing you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the early stages of analysing all the data that I have, but as you said, I'm looking at the impact of suicide on firefighters, not only through the jobs that we attend, but also, when we have sadly lost other firefighters to suicide, and also people have often had their own personal experience of suicide as well. So I'm looking at that real breadth of experience and hearing firefighters' stories. So I sit down in front of them and I hear their stories. And I think what really comes to me so far is that it has such a significant impact on the mental health and well-being of firefighters. And I want to just read a couple of excerpts from some of my interviews with firefighters that I think really speak to this. So this is talking about an exposure of a firefighter to a suicide at work. And he said, "I was ridiculously terrified. I just wanted to run out of there, but I knew I couldn't. I just had this overwhelming fear and concern for my own immediate family, my 2 boys. Could this ever happen to anyone that was significantly close to me? Then I just started to cry. I was just so sad for this boy, so sad for his family, so sad that it really hurt, and I just didn't understand. I was so confused. It was a real struggle to try and make some sense of it. The thing with suicide is quite often there's no backstory, there's no explanation. It just is what it is. But that's the thing that got me. There's no control. There's no, how did we get to this point? I'm nowhere near as social or open as I once was. I do a lot by myself." And then there was 2 other firefighters as well who were speaking in respect to the loss of another firefighter, so a fellow firefighter, to suicide. And one of them said, the guilt was ridiculous. I just couldn't handle the guilt. The guilt of not seeing it, not being aware of it, and not helping. I may not have been able to help, but not knowing and not trying is the thing for me. I was shit house at work, and then at home I was terrible. As a result, I separated from my wife. And another one said, I still struggle. I think that's the thing that I will never understand, just how quickly that turned. It shocked me to the core when he did it, because I just never thought that he was suffering in that way. And I think they're such powerful, they just really highlight so well, when we talk about the ripple effect of suicide, how much it reaches so far and beyond immediate family and throughout our communities in so many ways. And so although my story, it's not unique in any way, and that you don't have to know the person. And certainly what's coming through from my research is what a huge impact it has on firefighters, and perhaps particularly because we wear a uniform and our whole role is about rescuing life and preserving life. And, we're so good at rescuing other people, but that also has the flip side of it's so difficult to accept when we are helpless and when we can't rescue somebody, and so difficult to then also reach out for help. And I think what I really, there's such a sense of internal conflict, from all the people that I've spoken to, of what suicide brings up. And it's such a difficult thing to try and make any sense of. And what I found is this overwhelmingly that firefighters aren't able to make sense of it. And that, our job is very black, we exert control over uncontrolled events, and that's what we do, and we go through processes to exert a particular outcome. And with suicide, there is none of that. And so it's incredibly difficult for firefighters to really make peace with, and I think that certainly contributes to some of the reactions and effects that it has.
So they're very powerful stories from those colleagues of yours, Tara. Can you talk about the term suicide postvention and what that means? I have to confess that I'd never heard of that term until recently, and I thought I was reasonably mentally health literate. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so suicide postvention is the support that we offer to people who have been impacted or bereaved by suicide. And what we know, because people that have been impacted or bereaved by suicide are at greater risk of mental ill health, but also of suicide. So what we're really realizing is how important suicide postvention is in prevention. And really that's where my passion lies, in going, okay, from my research and other people's research, and certainly my supervisor's research, how can we provide better support to people so that they don't then suffer subsequent mental ill health or suicidal thoughts or behaviours themselves as a result of either bereavement or certainly being exposed to suicide. So, and I think, we're clearly missing something in our suicide prevention efforts. And, I think that postvention is a small part of that we can really work to address and make a significant difference in, and to reduce, that real collective sense of distress and burden that suicide has on our societies.